Hello, and welcome everybody. Happy Friday. I hope everyone had an awesome week and is ready for another Sectors Made Simple webinar. Today, we're going to be continuing with the trend that we started 2 weeks ago with our Subsector Spotlight. Every week, for the next couple of weeks, what we'll be doing is going in and taking a look at one specific subsector, talking about what it is, what it does, why it's important, and some key companies and ETFs within that sector, or rather subsector. So today we are continuing with that whole series with a very interesting one, because much like last week where we did consumer electronics, this subsector is not one of the most obvious, but it's one that you use more than you probably realize. So in addition to just talking about the companies, I want to share with you a little bit more information about exactly what this subsector is and why it's important, because understanding what and why will help us to understand where it's going from here. Software infrastructure is a massively growing industry. As technology allows for data to be easier to store and able to be stored in larger amounts, so does our ability to use that data to do something meaningful. And that's the point of today. I want to show you and talk a little bit more about software infrastructure, databases, and cloud computing, and why all of that is so important to us today in 2021. So, before we get into the presentation, I want to say hello to everyone we have with us live. Hello, Emelida, Blaze, Erika, Juan, Andrew, Eddie, Blanca, Chela, Kira, Mabel, Yara, Danny, my mom, who for some reason is not a moderator on this channel, now she is, Kike, Lucia, Veronica, Iwumi, welcome, that's a new name, Delia, Grisel, Josefina, Elizabeth, Sarah, Gerardo, Elena, and Teresa. Welcome everyone to everyone else that is with us. And I didn't say your name. Thank you so much for still being here. Everyone is a part of our family, and it's a pleasure to be here with you all. Let's get straight into the action. So, again, today's presentation is going to be on software infrastructure. Usual disclaimer, I'm going to talk about a subsector today. I'm going to share some companies and share a little bit about what these companies do. None of this is meant to be financial advice. It's meant to be educational material, so please treat it as such before investing in any of these sectors. Always do your own research, and if you want, consult an investment professional. So, software infrastructure is a very specific name, but an incredibly important subsector, where under the umbrella of the technology sector, that's kind of where we are. That's where we've been the past couple of weeks. Software infrastructure is one of the largest by market cap, but not by awareness, because this subsector contains some major S&P 500 companies. I'm not going to mention them right now because we'll go into it in a couple of minutes here. But let's take a look at this sector and some key companies within it, as well as why this subsector matters. This subsector is the reason we have such an interconnected world. It's the reason that this video is available to you live, but also this video is available to you if you're watching it after we've closed the webinar. Cloud computing and software infrastructure enables everything in our digital world. But before we get into software infrastructure, let's talk first about software and make sure we understand what the differences between software and hardware really are. Hardware is pretty straightforward. It's physical objects, it's telephones, it's power banks, it's computers, it's everything that we can touch and feel that uses technology. That is what hardware is. Software is the opposite end. It's everything we can't touch. It's programs. It's actual data. It's all of these little things around us. Code, programs, the cloud. All of these really kind of intangible things are software. So hardware, it's a thing. You can hold it. You can feel it. It takes up space in your room. And if it's a piece of technology, it probably generates a lot of heat. Software is what hardware uses and takes electricity and turns that electricity into something. So that's hardware and software. What exactly is infrastructure? Before we get into software infrastructure, let's just talk about infrastructure, because that word means something outside of the tech world. Infrastructure is anything that is used to either operate or run a enterprise company, so a huge company of tens of thousands of employees, an integrated system like a database or a cloud network, or even society. Our roads, our power grids, our buildings, all of that is infrastructure. Now, that's something that we can touch. That's something we can see. I can go out to the street and I can touch the street and say, this is a road. Sounds silly, but that's infrastructure. It's something that our society and our cities, towns, country needs to operate. If we don't have infrastructure, if we don't have roads, how can you drive to the supermarket? How can the supermarket get inventory? How can we get power to our houses if there's no power lines? Everything that is infrastructure allows us to have the society we do. So, well-built, but also well-maintained infrastructure is crucial. I'm sure that many of us have been driving on roads that may not be that great of roads. They may have a bunch of potholes, or the power cables in our communities are really old, so there's a lot of power outages, power cables falling. So building infrastructure is important, but maintaining it is equally as important. If we don't maintain it, things are going to go wrong. We're going to get potholes in the road, or in the worst case scenario, buildings can collapse, highways can crumble, and society becomes difficult. It's amazing how much we rely on roads, power, sewage, just to live the life that we do. But the reason I go into so much detail is because digital infrastructure is the exact same. It is things such as the internet, the ability for us to connect to the internet. You are seeing me through the computer because of multiple companies, not just one company, multiple companies working together so that my face goes into this camera connects to the worldwide internet, and that internet is pumped directly to your screen where you see me talking to you. But none of this is software infrastructure. Physical infrastructure, that's materials, construction, things like that. Digital infrastructure is, funny enough, kind of not even technology. It's a lot of telecommunications services and telecom and internet companies, things like that. Today, we're talking about software infrastructure. Software infrastructure includes things like databases and data centers, cloud computing, which is probably the term you're most familiar with here, and enterprise software. Let's break each one of these down a little bit and talk about them, because again, today isn't just about here's the companies, here's the sector, here's why you should care. I want it to be informational as well, because there's no class in high school that teaches you about databases. But many jobs require you to know what a database is, how to connect to it, how to use it, because databases are everywhere. Cloud computing, you probably use cloud computing whether you know it or not. So it helps you to know what it is, as well as enterprise software. Again, you don't need to be a 10,000 person company to start using enterprise level software. It's very easy to get started. And if you own a personal business, chances are you're probably using an enterprise level company as part of your day-to-day operations. So again, that's why all of this is important, but let's start simple. What are databases? Again, before we get into companies, I just want to talk a little bit about these big, I'm going to call them buzzwords. These words you're going to hear people say a lot, but no one explain what they are. So databases are like a giant spider web, but instead of having spiders, we have spreadsheets. Everyone here should be familiar with what a spreadsheet is, but spreadsheets, they're great. They're a single sheet of paper, but how do we use that outside of just putting information in it? Databases allow us to store information in spreadsheets, but then we can connect one spreadsheet to another. That is what is the difference between spreadsheets and databases. Databases take multiple what are called tables, so information that's up and down, left and right, like a spreadsheet would be, and then connect them together. For example, you definitely have an email. If you sign up for, let's say, Sectors Made Simple, there is going to be a database that has your name, your email, and that's it. Then there's going to be another system. For example, we use a program called Zendesk. So when you ask us a support question, we can respond to you. Zendesk has a list of emails and then what they asked, when, so on and so forth, and what they asked. But I want to be able to address you by name. I don't want to say, hello, Ace for the Match 3000. I want to say, hi, John. Hi, Juan de los Palotes. How are you doing? Or when you go in and you buy a subscription for Sectors Made Simple and you email for support, I want to be able to know, do you have a subscription? Is it active? When did it start? When did it end? So databases let me do that. I can connect our support to our members and connect our members to the purchases you make, so that when you email me, I know, okay, this email belongs to this person. This person bought a subscription here. They paid this much. Their subscription ends there. So it allows this incredible amount of connection where one table can talk to another. And again, this seems like crazy stuff, but the reason that we're talking about these companies is because they do it for us. I didn't need to go and tell Zendesk all of this crazy stuff. I hooked up Zendesk to our website. Now, Zendesk is connected. When you email support@sectorsmadesimple.com, it sends it to Zendesk. It takes your email so I know who you are and I can help you with what you need instead of having to ask, Do you have a subscription? When? And all of these questions, we already know it, so we can help you simpler. But that's not stored in my computer. I don't have all of that data underneath my desk. That's dumb, but it's also unsafe. So databases are often stored on a server, or what's called in the cloud. We hear this term of the cloud pretty frequently. But the reason why it's such a popular term is it's popular tech. It allows us to access that information from everywhere. I can access that from my computer. Kira, she can go on vacation and still be able to log into Zendesk and get the same information from Zendesk as I can from home. So things are stored in the cloud, so we can access them from anywhere, but also it's a lot safer. If I store something on my computer, guess what? Computers can get viruses. Information on your computer is meant to be really quick to access, but with that, there's less security. For example, when you come home from grabbing the groceries, you may have one lock on your door. So you go, you turn that one lock, and you're in the door. It's not as safe, but it's much more convenient, right? These cloud services, they don't just have one lock. They've got 5 different locks, a fingerprint scanner, and a voice detector. They have so many different layers of security to protect the information that you don't need it to be super quick. You just want to know that it's there and it's safe. Also, what happens if my computer decides to stop working? There goes all my data. The cloud allows you to, if one computer dies, that's fine. You get a new one, you set up the new one, and then you access the cloud again. And boom, there's all your stuff like you had it before. But again, let's go into a little bit more detail about this cloud thing, because it's, again, probably a term you've heard a lot about. So I want to help you to understand exactly what it is. The cloud is a network of computers called a server, or servers, because it uses multiple. A server, think of it like a computer, because it is. It has storage, it has memory, it has a processor, but unlike the computer you're watching this webinar on, that has a screen and that you can go onto your desktop and click Google Chrome, go to YouTube, servers don't have that. Servers instead will just be meant to store stuff. It's meant to be accessible. So what it is you don't connect directly to a server, you connect to the entire network. Think about it like this. You go to the library. This is going back to the days when people go to the library every day, but think about it like you're going to the library and you want to find a book. I want to find Get Your Share by Julie Stav. I could go and try and go through all of the aisles, the hundreds of thousands of books, and find the one that I want. Or I can ask the librarian, hey, where is Get Your Share by Julie Stav? And that's how cloud systems work. Instead of connecting directly to the server and trying to talk with the server, we instead can use these companies. That these companies store all of the information and then have a librarian where I don't need to go and look for the books. I can just ask the librarian, help me find this book. The other really cool thing about the cloud is it's not just one server. There's many of them. So this lets us do a lot of things all at the same time. Say we want to build a house. I'm not going to ask one person to build an entire house. It's going to take them a long time. They may be really good at painting, but they may not be good at drywall. In a server, or rather in a cloud, you can have multiple servers. So while one person is laying the foundation, the other is starting to put up, or starting to put in the power lines. As one person is putting in the drywall, another person is working on the floors. You can have multiple people or multiple servers working on different things all at the same time. So it's really, really cool that servers and cloud services exist because they let us do a lot of stuff much faster than we could with one single computer. But they don't just let us do more stuff, they let us also store stuff. Things like Google Drive or even iCloud are services offered by Google and Apple that let us put information on the cloud so that I can put something on this computer and then access it from my phone. Let's put things into another example here. Sectors made simple. We use the cloud quite a bit here at Sectors Made Simple. So to give you an idea of just how much, let's go through an example. Let's talk about it in the context of Sectors Made Simple. So our website doesn't live on my computer, it lives on a server. So when you want to go to the website, sectorsmadesimple.com, you don't go and ask Jonathan, hey, can I go to Sectors Made Simple? No. What you do is you ask your internet provider, hey, send me to sectorsmadesimple.com. They go and they ask the server, the actual computer where our website lives, hey, this person wants to connect. Can you give me the book or the information that they want? Sectors Made Simple gives you the web page, and then your internet service provider comes back and says, here you go, here's what you asked for. So that's our website. When you go to sectorsmadesimple.com, this lives on a web page, or this web page lives on a server. That server has an address just like your house has an address. So when you hit load or when you hit webinars, you are connecting to a server that all of this stuff lives on. So my computer doesn't need to be on for you to access our website. But then there's the matrix. The matrix lives on another server, which is done through Amazon. They have a service called Amazon Web Services. And when the matrix updates, Nate doesn't sit there and do a bunch of work by hand. All of it's done automatically. We have a program run on the cloud that then connects to our cloud database and grabs the current matrix. Then it goes and asks IEX Cloud, which is who we get our market data from, hey, give me the data from today. Then we set up about 10 different computers and say, all right, you do XLE, you do XLK, you do XLRE, you do SPY. Once you're done, come back to me. So all of these different computers all run at the same time, so it's done faster, and then comes back to me and says, here's XLK, here's XLRE, here's SPY. Then we have another program that runs, puts all that together, and then sends that back to our database, where when you connect to the matrix, you connect to our database. And then that's where you get this new matrix data from. We use multiple databases, dozens of servers, and all of this is done automatically and on the cloud using software infrastructure. If all of that didn't make sense, don't worry. I'm just trying to give you a very, very basic look at everything that is going on in the cloud. But you can, and many people do, get entire degrees. They go to college just to learn about cloud computing and how to build cloud services. So this is a massive industry, but is also a very, very complex industry. We're people. We are humans. We like to be able to touch and hold things so we can get more information about it. Technology, we can't touch. I can't go and grab the cloud and be like, "What are you?" It's probably not going to say anything back. It's the internet. So that's why it's just important that we know how we can use it. Because I don't know how to build a cloud database. I don't know how to build cloud infrastructure. I'd rather just pay someone to do it for me, which is why we pay Google, Microsoft, and to a lesser extent, even Apple and Amazon. They do it for us. They invest a lot more money into it. They're a lot faster at it. They also have a lot more security than any of us could ever hope. So I mentioned a couple of companies there, but not all of those companies are actually software infrastructure. So let's go through some of the biggest software infrastructure companies as defined by FinViz. The biggest is Microsoft. Then Adobe, Oracle, Square, VMware, Palantir, Cloudflare. Some of these names you're familiar with, and others you may not be. But to understand more about what and why these companies are in this category, let's take each one of them and talk about them in a little bit more detail. Because they're not like semiconductor companies. They don't all make one thing. They all do something different. And that's what's really cool about this entire thing, is that it's not just cars. It's not just telecommunications. It's such a broad category that isn't defined by just one offering. So let's go through some of these different ones, and then we'll summarize what the common traits are in all of them. First and foremost, the one you're all familiar with, or most familiar with, good old Microsoft. Microsoft sells some fairly basic pieces of consumer software that you probably use. Excel, Word, PowerPoint, and even Windows. If you're using Windows 10, congratulations, that's built by Microsoft. But they also do a lot more for the enterprise level companies. Enterprise companies are, think of it like this. They're more than one building. They're more than 1,000 people. They are 10,000 person companies that need all of the information to be shared. Because you can't just go to the filing cabinet and pull out the file you need when the filing cabinet's in New York and you're in Los Angeles. And fax, I tell you what, you're not going to be faxing all that data. So that's why we have enterprise software. So they offer a database management tool called Access. Someone mentioned it before. Yes, Access is software infrastructure. It allows you to have all of your data be on a server, and then to access that data, I connect to that server. I go and knock on the door of that server and say, hey, give me this data. There's also enterprise versions of Microsoft products. So there is Word for Enterprise. Instead of storing all the data on your computer, you store it in what's called OneDrive, their cloud storage solution. You store everything in OneDrive, and then we can all connect directly to OneDrive. So Microsoft is not only a software infrastructure company, but Microsoft is, by market capitalization, by like how much it's valued at, the biggest software infrastructure company. But they also have some of the most advanced and widely available cloud computing and cloud-based storage services. I see many people saying, I've used Access, I've used it. Yeah, this is what I meant. People work with the cloud. You store data on the cloud. For example, I just got a new phone. All of my photos aren't stored on my phone, they're stored on OneDrive. So that way, if my phone gets stolen or run over by a car or just flattened or stops working, all of my photos are safe because I can buy a new phone, log into OneDrive, and ta-da, I have all of my photos again. I can also have them on my computer. My OneDrive is connected to my phone, but also my computer. So I can look at all of my photos on my computer as well. I can say, hey, this was me in Yosemite. This was me 5 years ago. I had a lot more hair back then, and it was not as gray as it is now. That kind of thing is what cloud services let us do, and cloud storages. Google Drive could be a cloud. It is a cloud. It is a cloud indeed. Alrighty. Adobe. Adobe is a company that you probably haven't heard of. If you have, you're probably in the graphic design or digital media space. But I promise you, you've probably used some of their products. Adobe makes and specializes in software for graphic design, video editing, and photography by making products such as Photoshop, Adobe PDF Reader, or even good old Flash. Now, Flash is no longer supported because there's newer and better technology out there. But back in the day, Flash Player was how browsers like Chrome could actually do things. It was one of the first ways for you to interact with something on a web page and have it change based on what you do. Now, that's some of their old stuff. Today, Adobe's main service that they offer is called the Creative Cloud. Creative Cloud allows large companies to store their photo and video stuff in the cloud so that I can record something in Los Angeles, put it in the cloud, and then Juan de los Palotes from New York can download that video, edit it, and put the video back up so I can see it and then upload it to YouTube. There is no Juan de los Palotes in New York, by the way, but just for examples. Adobe also is competing with another company called DocuSign, D-O-C-U is that ticker symbol, for the document signing space. Congratulations, we are now in a post-pandemic world where signing a piece of paper and faxing it is pretty outdated. Now, if you need to sign an agreement or if you need to fill out paperwork, you can just log in to a website, create a little signature with your mouse, and sign on the dotted line, Everything is all digital. Everything. I've filled out paperwork for work. I've filled out just about anything you could possibly imagine I've done through a online document signing service. So that's a growing industry and one that we all kind of need. Then there is Oracle. If we were looking at only companies that do software infrastructure, Oracle is the second largest. Oracle databases specialize because they can work, they're not just the cloud. They can also be run on hardware, or what's called on-prem or on-premises. So what that means is that I can have people will own servers in their house where it's a computer that doesn't have a monitor. All it has is an address to connect to it via the internet. So I can store all of my movies on that. And then from any computer in the house, connect to that server and watch the movie. But it also can store customer data. Security is huge. That's not just something in the digital world. Making sure that we have a security system for our house. We have security for insurance, even is security. So a lot of places, instead of trusting someone else to store their data, that's incredibly important, they store it themselves. Others, they don't want to deal with that. They would rather say, you guys handle the security, so I don't have to. So Oracle can do that as well. And they create software to help manage hundreds or thousands of employees, customers, or even supply chains. How large companies manage their inventory. Walmart, for example. How do they know how many copies of a game or a movie they have? How do they know where all of those movies are while they're being delivered? Supply chains and inventory management, Oracle specializes in. Now, this is one that many of you small business owners probably use. Square. Square is a very small startup made by this person you've probably never heard about, Tom Dorsey. Not Tom Dorsey from, like, Dorsey, Wright and Associates. Tom Dorsey as in Tom Dorsey from Twitter. Jack Dorsey. My apologies. Not Tom Dorsey. Tom Dorsey is literally the guy from Stock Charts and from Point and Figure. So Jack Dorsey is the Twitter CEO and also the founder of Square. Square allows companies to accept money. So if someone wants to pay you for stuff, you can swipe your credit card into a telephone or into a point of sale system, store payment records, and look at your revenue over time. And all of this is done safely. That's why we use Stripe or Square, is we don't want the responsibility of protecting, well, of course, we want to make sure we protect customers' data and their payment information. That's why we don't do it ourselves. We ask Square or Stripe to do it for us. They invest a lot more money into data security, and they know the risks a lot better than we do. So we trust them to, when you swipe your card, you know if Stripe is doing it, there's a certain level of safety associated with that. But right now, Square is what's called centralized. There is a database that they manage all of these payments from, where, again, all of their data is stored in a single cloud system. One of the very cool things about Square, and part of the reason why I'm going through this is to show you where all of this is moving to, is Square is trying to decentralize their database. Instead of owning it on a server and hoping that no one hacks that server or anything like that, they want to put all of that on the blockchain. More specifically, Bitcoin's blockchain. They want to create a decentralized database of customer records using blockchain, so that instead of them having to say, John paid Juan $5, the Bitcoin blockchain says John paid Juan $5. Next is VMware. VMware's main product is software that lets you create a mini computer inside your own computer. This is incredibly useful if you want to test. For example, if I'm on a Mac and I want to see how my website looks on a PC, I can use VMware to create a mini Windows computer and test the website. I can do that for Windows 7, Windows 8, anything. You can create a new computer just out of thin air. Or one of the biggest uses for it is viruses. Testing viruses, making sure that a file isn't malicious, isn't going to try and steal your data. Instead of putting it on your computer, you put it on a virtual machine. On a VMware virtual box is what they're called. So with that, if there is a virus and it crashes your computer, it's as easy as closing the window, deleting it, and you can open it up again. But VMware, and the reason we're talking about it here, is they also offer cloud computing, where you can develop and run apps, and instead of testing it on your computer's hardware using a virtual machine, you can connect to their virtual machines and test it on their systems. But this is pretty new. VMware's cloud services just started up in April, so we're not sure exactly where it's going to go or how big it's going to get. But again, they are a very established company that's making their way into the cloud computing area. So I wanted to mention them because they're, again, a big company overall. Then there's Palantir, not sure how to pronounce that, but they sell database software. But instead of it just being like Access, it's meant for what's called big data. Big data is a word you're going to hear a lot about because it's not collecting data for any purpose. It's just collecting as much data as they possibly can. About what? Anything. Literally anything is big data. Companies like Google use big data to help you get ads you're interested in, whether you like it or not. They will collect data not just about what you're searching for, but how long did you spend on a web page? How long did you sit there looking at a link? How long, what did you do? When? All of these things, where were you when you did it, are parts of big data. And big data can be massive. Gigabytes or even terabytes of storage are needed to put all of this data in. But what's harder than storing 1 terabyte of data is looking through 1 terabyte of data. To give you an idea, my computer is incredibly powerful. I've got a decent amount of storage, and my total storage is about 2.3 terabytes. Oh, by the way, there's OneDrive. I've got 1 terabyte of storage available on OneDrive. I like OneDrive quite a bit. But we're talking here 10, maybe 20 terabytes of data. So Palantir is not just for people like you and me. They're also contracted by U.S. agencies such as the U.S. Intelligence Committee and Department of Defense to go through large amounts of data and identify potential threats to national security or to help identify different people that may be a target or a threat to someone else or to even themselves. So big data analytics, whether you like it or not, is here and is only going to continue getting bigger. Then yes, Palantir is technically protecting us through trying to eliminate threats. Cloudflare is a kind of company that tries to protect us by protecting us. They specialize in internet security, website security, and content delivery networks, called CDNs. If you've ever heard that term, content delivery network. They work with large enterprises like your Apples, your Adobes, your Amazons, but also small companies as well. We don't use Cloudflare at Sectors Made Simple, but we use something very similar to it, where they offer things like database protection or what's called DDoS protection. You've probably seen Cloudflare. If when you connect to a website, it's going to say, are you a human? Or verifying you're a human. What that is them trying to protect the website because there's something called a DDoS, direct denial of service. I'm not going to get into that too much today. It's a huge topic on its own. But what that basically means is, say I really don't like juandelospalotes.com. What I can do is I can take my computer and say, hey, internet, give me that website. But instead of saying it once, I say it 1,000,000 times a second. So that website, when you ask it once, hey, can you give me your data? It's pretty easy. It puts together a little box for you and sends you that data called a packet. But what happens when you send 1,000,000 of those in 1 second? That poor little person that's trying to package all of those packets to send to you, they're going to get really annoyed and probably quit. That's exactly what a DDoS is. They send so many requests to a website that the website just gives up, calls it a day, and goes home. So that's not good, because now no one else can connect to your website. Cloudflare tries to protect your site against something like that, where instead of it allowing those 1,000,000 requests to go through, it says, prove to me you're a human. Prove to me you're a human. Prove to me you're a human, instead of a robot saying, give me this website 1,000,000 times. This is crazy. This is a crazy amount of companies doing a crazy amount of different things. Software infrastructure is incredibly broad. Just as all of these descriptions have shown, it's a much broader subsector than something like semiconductors. But all of these companies have a couple of things in common. They use the internet. They don't build the internet. They don't create ways for me to communicate with the internet. Those are telecommunications companies, and that's a topic for a different day. But what they do is they use the internet to store information, to let your business work easier, and to protect your data. They either build cloud networks or they use cloud networks to help you move information and important processes off of your computers that can crash, can have power outages, and all of this, and move it into data centers that have incredible amounts of security and encryption to make sure that no one can access it that's not supposed to. Also, they are some of the largest consumers for new and advanced technology. Remember how we talked about Moore's Law, about how the level of technology grows every single year, or every 2 years it doubles? These guys are part of the reason why it has to. It's not because you and I need that fast computer today. It's because the Microsofts, the Adobes, and the Oracles of the world need them so that they can store more data, they can work faster, and they can store that information more securely. All right, that was a lot of information and a lot of different topics, a lot of different companies, but hopefully now you have a little bit better of an idea of what cloud computing actually is, how it works. It's not one computer, it's not one big cloud. It's a bunch of little water droplets that all work together in a giant group so that those water droplets can become a cloud. It's a pretty accurate name if you ask me. But let's bring things back down to ground level. And we've talked about some of the companies. In a minute here, once we talk about the ETFs, I want to show you something really special that we've been working on. So let's just really quickly talk about ETFs. Just like consumer software last week, there is no software infrastructure ETF. It is an industry that goes by many different names, including cloud computing and software services. So with that said, we have quite a few ETFs in those categories. One of them is Sky, SKYY, which is First Trust Cloud Computing ETF. iShares has IGV, which is their tech software ETF. There is CLOU, CLOU, which is global computing. And good old State Street Spider even has one under the ticker symbol XSW, which is for software and services. So those are some ETFs that if this is a cool industry to you and you want to invest in where this is going, that's a good starting point for your research. But again, why should you care? You should care because software infrastructure is not just a growing industry, but it's an industry that you are using more and more, whether you realize it or not. If you are a small business owner and you want to take payments, and you want to take payments in person, you're probably going to use either Square, Stripe, or another sort of merchant service company like that. Those are cloud computing. So whether you understand what cloud computing is or not, you understand a little bit more now. And again, it's not that you need to know what it is today, but you need to understand exactly what it is and isn't, because it's going to become more and more common. As the technology improves and data becomes not just faster to process, but easier for us to store, the number of software infrastructure companies will continue to grow, but not just more companies will emerge. The companies we have will continue to get bigger and bigger and bigger. The beauty of software is that it grows incredibly quickly because the hardware it uses grows incredibly quickly. So, when you can make a lot more of something, the cost goes down. So as all of this continues, for example, if I go to Google Drive, I have 15 gigabytes of storage. I can pay for more if I want. You can go in and you can pay for more. But because I'm part of Sectors Made Simple and I wanted to have storage space for a lot of our files, I bought a Microsoft subscription. I subscribe so that I have Word, PowerPoint, and Excel on my computer. And with that, I got free storage. 1 terabyte of free storage. So Google offers you about 15 gigs. Microsoft, with a basic subscription, just throws in a terabyte worth of storage. So, yeah, it's something that's growing more and more by the day. The ability for you to store more data is increasing, and the price to store that data is also decreasing. Now, that's the end of the presentation, but I want to show you guys something pretty cool. Now, again, this is data from today. We have been working in Sectors Made Simple to provide you more information, not just on the things we think you would find interesting, but on the things that you would find interesting. Because we have access to a lot of servers, what we can do is we can use some of those servers to let you run things like custom matrices, for example. So what we did was we took 7 of those companies from this software infrastructure subsector, and we created a custom matrix using those 7 companies. This is all only for today, because this is the matrix from today. What we see is Adobe has a total count of 11 compared to all of the others. This lets us see relative strength for not just the sector ETFs, but also any companies you want. Right now, we only have the New York Stock Exchange, but we're working on getting more and more so that you're not limited to just the New York Stock Exchange. Any sector ETF, any ETF period, or any ticker symbol that is in the US market, it is our goal to eventually be able to let you see that, to create your own matrix using it. So if you had to ask me today, what is the best company within, or what's the best company within this subsector? Pretty clearly, I would be able to say Adobe. But soon you won't have to take my word for it. This is an update that will be coming to the matrix. And if you have a Sectors Made Simple subscription, congratulations. This will be included in your subscription. You will be able to go in and create custom matrices, as well as we're working on a couple of other cool projects using this whole idea of, well, okay, Lucia, are you putting more companies on the matrix? No, we are not putting more companies on the matrix. Instead, we're going to let you be able to create the matrix yourself using whatever companies you want, but also we're working on some other what are called predefined scans. Just like when you go to stock charts, you have predefined groups. We're going to have that too for custom matrices. So you can choose from a list of predefined scans that we will have so that you can see the matrix for that scan, updated with the most recent matrix data we have. Again, all of this will be coming to a Sectors Made Simple subscription near you as soon as we can. But I wanted to show you this today because it lets us see that these industries are incredibly diverse just within the industry itself, and that, yes, sectors are cool. Looking into subsectors is even cooler, but looking within the subsector is incredibly valuable. So a tool like this will help you to find that bull market, whether it's in a market, a sector, a subsector, or even in a couple of companies. So that's all the time we have for today. Lucia is asking, is this for day trading or swing trading or short-term, long-term? It still is meant to be for the same style of investing you would do with the matrix, because this doesn't update with data midday. So this is stuff that's going to run alongside the matrix. So when the matrix updates, this will update in a very similar way. So it'll update once a day. It's not meant for day trading. It's meant for finding buy opportunities as buy signals arise. Because again, all of this is using point and figure. Point and figure does not change overnight. It changes with momentum and with trends. So it's meant to help you with both of those. But that's all the time we have for today. I'm sure you will see this whole custom matrix thing much, much more as we finish the development on it and we start to be able to get this to you for a Sectors Made Simple subscription near you. Thank you all so much. I will see you all the members on Tuesday, and everyone else, I will see you guys next Friday for another Subsector Spotlight. Thank you all.